Hello class, welcome to Pre-Algebra Lesson 1-5, Day 3. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. I do want to apologize. I am currently sick, as you can probably hear, so my voice might be a little tough to listen to today, and I'm sorry. But I'm going to do the best I can, okay? So let's start with example 1, which is adding fractions. So yesterday we looked at adding fractions where the bottom numbers or the denominators were always the same. So now what we are going to do is we are going to practice adding when they are not the same. And the key thing here is that our main goal is to get them so they match. Okay, once they match, we can add just like we did yesterday. So when I look at these two numbers, I see the bottom numbers are an 8 and a 4. And right away, because I know my math facts and it can take some practice to get used to this, I think of the fact that, hey, 4, I can multiply 4 by 2 in order to make that an 8. Okay, so whenever you're changing these numbers, you want to think multiplication, okay? So you want to think, what can I multiply by in order to get these to match? So in this case, I can multiply that 4 by a 2 in order to get them to match. But if I multiply the bottom by 2, I also have to multiply the top by 2. Okay, in math, things do not like to get left out. Okay, so if you do something to one thing, chances are you're having to do it to another number. Okay, so now I still have that 5/8 because I haven't multiplied it by anything. But then my 3/4 becomes 3 times 2, which is 6 on top, and 4 times 2, which is 8 on the bottom. From here, now it's just like yesterday, where 5/8 plus 6/8, well, that would be 11/8, because remember, when you're adding or subtracting fractions, the bottom number stays the same, and you combine the top numbers. So 11/8, and that is something called an improper fraction, meaning the number on the top is bigger than the number on the bottom. So we're going to change it to a mixed number. I know that 8 can go into the number 11 one time and have 3 left over. So my final answer is going to be 1 and 3/8. All right, let's look at this second problem. I have -1/4 plus -2/5. So neither of my numbers on the bottom match. And so that means that I'm going to have to multiply again. But the problem here is I can't multiply 4 by any number and end up at 5. So what I have to think of instead is, what number do both 4 and 5 go into? And if you're a little stuck, something I would recommend, just for maybe at least a few of them, is to write out what are the multiples of each number. So 4 would be 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20. And once you hit that other number, you don't have to go any further, okay? So 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 4 is 20. And I know right away that these 20s match, but I want to check, is there anything smaller that matches? And in this case, there's not. So that tells me I'm going to multiply so I get 20 on the bottom of each of these fractions. So in order to turn this 4 into a 20, I have to multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 5. Okay, now on the right hand side, that -2/5, in order to get 5 to become a 20, I have to multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 4. Okay, so you can see I've written out my work. Now let's actually do that multiplication. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20, and I still have that negative. So I'm going to carry that down. And then I still have the negative on the second one. 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 4 is 20. And since both of these numbers are negative, I know my final answer is going to be negative. I know the bottom number is going to be 20. And now, since I know both of them are negative, I can add like normal. So what's 5 plus 8? That's 13. So my answer is going to be a negative 13/20. If you have questions about that, please, please, please reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Let's practice looking at some mixed numbers now. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to add mixed numbers. So looking at this first problem here, when you're adding, remember just like yesterday, when you're adding mixed numbers, you can kind of take your whole numbers and put them off to the side. Okay, so I know I'm going to have 2 plus 9. Well, that's going to become an 11. Awesome, I can put that off to the side, but I cannot forget about it. And now I have 3 7s plus 4 8s. And I want to think, what number do both 7 and 8 go into? And I could make that list of numbers like I did on the last slide. Another method that you can do is simply multiply each fraction by the opposite bottom number, the opposite denominator. This always works. You just might have more reducing to do at the end if you go with this method, okay? In this instance, that does happen to be the shortest way to do this problem, but it will not always be the shortest way to do the problem. Okay, so I multiplied that first fraction by 8 because that's my opposite denominator right there. And then I multiplied the second fraction by 7 because it's my opposite denominator right there. Okay, so 8 times 3 on the top is going to give me 24/56. And then 4 times 7 on the top is going to give me 28/56. Okay, so I have 11 plus 24/56 plus 28/56. So if I were to combine those fractions, 24 plus 28 is going to be 52/56. And now I want to reduce that fraction. So I can keep the 11, but then I want to think, okay, what goes into both 52 and 56? And if you're not sure, just notice they're both even numbers. Sometimes noticing the even number pattern can be a nice way to take bigger numbers and get them smaller to find a different pattern. So if I divide both the top and bottom by 2, I am left with 26/28, and I see, hey, they're still even numbers. I can divide by 2 again. So 26 divided by 2 is going to become 13, and 28 divided by 2 is 14. So my final answer is going to be 11 and 13/14. Okay, so that can be one way that you solve this problem. Now, let's look at another problem type. I can still take those whole numbers, add them off to the side. And then if I notice and take a look at my fractions, I see, hey, I have a 6 and a 12. I know that 6 times 2 gives me 12. So I'm just going to multiply this second fraction by 2 rather than changing everything. So I'm going to say plus 11/12 plus, and then 5 times 2 is 10. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, so here, 3 plus 4 gives me 7. 11 plus 10 is 21/12. And that's an improper fraction. I have a couple of options. I can either reduce here. So maybe you see these two numbers and you say, hey, these are both divisible by 3. Let's make this easier. So then you could have 7/4 right there. Or maybe you look at that and you just want to simplify the 21/12. That's just fine too. So if I were to simplify 21/12, I know 12 can go into 21 one time, and it would have, let's see, 9 left over. So it would be 1 and 9/12. So then again, I would add my whole numbers and I would get 8. And then instead of 9/12, I could divide by 3 now and get 3/4. So it's really up to you at what stage you want to reduce. Okay, so I'm going to take some pen and I'm going to write off to the side. So let's say I still had the 7 plus 7/4. Let's say I had decided this is the way I wanted to do it. This would become 7 plus 4 goes into 7 one time with 3 left over. So you could see that it's just another way of getting to that same answer. It's just whatever works best for you. All right, why don't you go ahead and try this one on your own? Good luck. Okay, for this problem, hopefully you ended up at 20 and 7/12. You can see I chose just to multiply this first fraction by 3 in order to get it to have a common denominator, and then I added together. If you have questions about that, please reach out for some help. I am happy to help you. Let's now practice subtracting fractions. So this is going to be much of the same idea where you need to have the same denominator. So since 3 can't multiply into 5, what I'm going to do is say, well, 3 can't multiply into 5, but both 5 and 3 go into the number 15. So I'm going to change this denominator to be 15. Okay, so 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 3 is 12. And you can see I have a small number minus a big number, so that means that my final answer is going to be negative. And then I can just do my big number minus my small number. So 12 minus 5 is actually 7. So it's going to be a negative 7/15. And that does not simplify at all. So that's going to be my final answer. All right, let's try another one. This time I have 30/20 minus 5/8. So one option that sometimes students go to immediately is they just take that opposite denominator and they multiply that. So they would end up with 24 over 160 minus 100 over 160. So you can see if you do that, you end up at some pretty big numbers. So instead of doing that, I want to show you a different way to do it. So you could have that 3/20 minus 5/8. There's actually a smaller number that both 20 and 8 go into, and that's the number 40. So I can multiply 20 by 2 to get to 40, and I can multiply 8 by 5 to get to 40. So 2 times 3 gives me 6 over 40, minus 5 times 5 is 25 over 40. And then I can do the same thing that I did on the last problem. I see that I have a small minus a big, so my final answer is going to be negative. And then I can do 25 minus 6, that's 19. And then 40 on the bottom, and that's not going to reduce at all. That's going to be my final answer. Okay, and if you were to finish off this green writing at the top, you would end up at the same thing once you simplify. All right, so for this problem, now we're going to do some mixed numbers. With these mixed numbers, I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can do it. So let's say we have 12 and 5/6 minus 2 and 3/4. Just like I showed you with addition yesterday, you could do 12 minus 2, which is 10, and then 5/6 minus 3/4, you need a common denominator. So I know 6 and 4 go into 12. So I'm going to multiply those quickly. So I have 10/12 minus 9/12. Oops, 9/12. Oh, it erased everything when I hit undo. Let me try that again. 9/12. So if I were to subtract that, I would end up at 10 and 1/12. Okay, so that's one possible way to do this problem. Another way to do this problem is you can turn these into improper fractions. Okay, I've always found that with students that get confused about what to do with their fractions, changing everything to an improper fraction, it always works. It is more work, but it is consistently correct. So if you're someone that feels confused, I recommend do what I'm about to do, okay? So we're going to I'm going to rewrite that problem. I have 12 and 5/6 minus 2 and 3/4. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to convert these to improper fractions. So I'm going to say 12 times 6, which is 72, plus 5, so that's 77 over 6, minus, and then 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11/4. Okay, so now we have some nice improper fractions. We do the same thing that we were doing before, where you are going to multiply to get a common denominator. So again, 12 is a great number to use. I can multiply the top and bottom by 2 for the first one, and the top and bottom by 3 for the second one. 77 times 2 is going to give us 154 over 12, minus 11 times 3 is 33 over 12. If I were to do 154 minus 33, I end up at 121 over 12. And if you're wondering how many times can 12 go into 121, well, I noticed that it's pretty similar number. The top number just has a 1. So I'm going to guess 10. And 12 times 10 would be 120. So that gets me pretty close. So I'm going to write 10. And then, so 12 times 10 is 120. So if I do 121 minus that 120 to find out how much is left over, I see that there's just 1 left over. So my answer would be 10 and 1/12. Okay, so that is going to be how you can do it using an improper fraction. Okay, if you need help with that, please ask. All right, looking at the second one, I see that I have a 7 and a 14, so I know ultimately I'm going to change the 7 into a 14. But before I do that, I see that I have a bigger number minus a smaller number for both the number, or sorry, a small number minus a big number. So what I'm going to do is just that same process where I change it to an improper fraction. So 7 times 7 is 49, plus 6 is 54. So, or sorry, not 54, 55. So I have 55 over 7 minus, and then 9 times 14 is 126. So 126 plus 1 is 127/14. My next step is going to be to multiply the first fraction by 2 in order to get a common denominator. So I have 110 over 14 minus 127 over 14. Now when I look at this, I see, okay, I have small minus big, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And then 127 minus 110 is going to be 17 over 14. And I'm going to convert that to a mixed number. I know 14 can go into 17 one time. And if I'm looking for how many left over, that would be 3. And so my answer would be negative 1 3/14. Okay, if you have questions about that, please ask for help. I'm happy to help you. Here is the last question for you guys to do today. Good luck. All right, for this problem, hopefully you ended up at 34/35. Okay, there I showed my work. Hopefully that will help guide you. It is possible that you did it a different way than I showed you. Feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to help you, or ask a friend. Please make sure you understand this. Okay, if you ask questions, I'm not going to judge you. In fact, I'm going to think very highly of you for speaking up and advocating for yourself that you don't understand. So please ask questions, because I really am happy to help you. I hope you have a great day.